This is World Beer News. Details on how you can be involved. Contact news@tastingnitch.com. These are the latest reports in the malt beverage industry for the last week of October. I'm Nitch with a selection of highlights from around the world. Coming up, a Canadian beer blogger inspires the country to brew a centuries-old Jewish beer that tastes like
sweaty animal.
It's something that the craft beer community has really embraced, but people that have only had sort of the mass market beers might be a little bit taken aback.
I'll give you information on how you can be part of Rwanda's first craft brewery.
Every little bit helps Dina get closer to her dream.
Also, in this episode, the Yuengling beer dynasty gets validation from the Brewers Association as a change in regulation allows them to once again be considered craft, and they make their vote for the presidential elections. We also will follow up on our story from Australia, where thousands have joined a boycott of CUB brand beer in what is now a 130-plus day-long protest against the firing of 55 workers. We take a look at two breweries making beer that not only tastes good, but feels good.
Get it in your nose really strong when you're sniffing the glass.
Ooh, exciting. All that coming up, but first, here's the first beer that was made to be paired with scotch, which is surprising because I thought that all beer was made to be paired with scotch. Well, no better way to express your love of all things booze than this pre-scented whiskey soup jacket. Hard as you may try, sir, you'll never be the most interesting man in the world. Dos Equis has released its first commercial for the world's most interesting man replacement, and apparently all other most interesting people in the world are women.
He once cheated death, and death was perfectly okay with it. He can tie his arm behind his back, with one arm tied behind his back. If life were to give him lemons, he'd make a spinach fettuccine with a shiitake mushroom glaze.
What does it mean? So, in case you missed Dave Mustaine from Megadeth's 55th birthday and beer release, here are the highlights.
Now that is a fancy cake.
So what you enjoy today at Tout Le Monde is a beer that has been designed perfectly to Dave's taste.
For me, I like something that, it's not going to make me feel heavy or something that, you drink one beer and you're wasted. I know a lot of people want beer like that, but this isn't the right beer for you. That if you want something that's real heavy and it's going to knock you on the floor, then go find some other crap. This is for distinctive beer drinkers.
A nice dry up saison, nice crisp, dry finish with hoppy notes. At Tout Le Monde means to everyone.
I'm really glad you guys are all here.
We fucking love you, Dave!
And that's not all Canada has been up to this week. Gary Gilman, a beer blogger, posted a blog entry on his website about Ezekiel Hart and the first Jewish brewery in Quebec. It got the attention of the Museum of Jewish Montreal, who decided that someone had to brew it again.
I'd call it a beer like the Trappist beer Orval.
Quite rich.
It's a big malty beer, not hoppy, not bitter really, but it has its main profile from the yeast that we used. We used a regular yeast, but it's a pretty strong beer, so a lot of malt for it. So it's a big backbone of malt with a nice but odd kind of flavor from the Brett yeast that we used.
I've heard it described as horse blanket.
Yes.
Sweaty animal.
I don't think that means what you think it means. So good on ya, beer blogger, for inspiring things. One more thing in the news this week showcasing Canada's dedication to beer culture, and in a big way, is Beau's Brewing. They're helping to create Rwanda's first craft brewery run by a woman who aims to employ woman farmers to grow raw material for the brewery. And you can help out.
Rwanda describe it as a very humble country because it's small. We know we are small, but we are proud of who we are.
This is sustainable, and that's what's in the best interest of the women and the country.
My dad and I started Beau's with the promise of making excellent, flavorful beer, of using our brewery as a force for good in the world.
It's a feeling that I cannot explain to you. unless you've been a refugee.
But when Bose Brewing says they're investing, they don't mean a financial ownership stake. The Canadian brewery will advise, guide, and provide training to the startup team, but will retain no ownership or profit sharing rights to it. Things can actually happen like that. It's amazing, right? Although most of these locations seem to be pulled from ratebeer.com, it's worth a skim through, if only to see what the insider considers the world's coolest breweries to be. Not surprisingly, on that list is DG Yuengling Son, the United States' oldest brewery. Its use of corn in its beer had kept it off of the Brewers Association's annual list of top-performing craft breweries. But now that corn has been given the okay by the association, its winning production volume has taken it past Boston Beer, the Brewers of Samuel Adams. For more about the Yuengling Empire and who they're voting for in the US presidential election, you can check out this Forbes long read. It also features a little short video about Dick himself. I put forth a little bit of effort so that you guys have all the links from the stories right there at your fingertips, and while you're down there poking around for links, why don't you give this a bit of a thumbs up, make sure that you're subscribed, and copy the link to this video on your clipboard. That way you can share it on whichever media platform you use, or just send it to your friends so that you won't be the only one with stuff to talk about at the pub tonight. That's an idea. CUB laid off 55 workers without cause. Clever. What began at the brewery gates has, with the ownership of CUB being transferred to AB InBev, now turned into a nationwide boycott. Our friend SWILLINGROG has the story in Australia.
Thanks, Nitch. Yes, 19 weeks have now passed, and the union dispute still wages on. This has at least led to a Senate inquiry being set up by the Federal Labor Party here into corporate avoidance of the Fair Work Act of 2009. They say this inquiry will focus on Australian companies that exploit illegal loopholes and use labour hire and outsourcing to reduce workers' pay and conditions. Unfortunately, I must say that sadly this kind of skullduggery is quite rampant here these days. At least workers at Carlton and United Breweries were affiliated with a strong trade union to back them. AB InBev, who recently assumed ownership of Carlton and United Breweries after the merger with former parent company SAB Miller, are indeed well aware of the dispute and seeking to end it, which is more than can be said for the former SAB Miller management who just ignored the protesters. A special meeting was organised between the two parties last Thursday in front of the Fair Work Commission President Ian Ross in an attempt to end the stalemate. Unfortunately, no resolution was reached. Back to you, Nitch.
We'll continue to follow the story and bring updates. But until then, if you're in Australia, you can sound like an activist just by boycotting these beers. It just really gives you a reason to not have to drink them. Yeah. But if you're even more activist than that, Good Beer Company's Kickstarter was funded about a year ago, and now they're finally ready to make good on their ambitious eco-friendly promise.
Our first Good Beer, Great Barrier Beer, gives 50% of its profits to the Australian Marine Conservation Society for the important work that they do to protect our national icon, the Great Barrier Reef.
It's feel-good drinking taken to a whole nother level. The ocean floor. If you're in North America, you too can aid in funding research and development with marine biology.
Eventually, we came up with the idea for North Coast Stellar IPA and put together the group that we plan to support, including Andrew at the University of British Columbia, the Marine Mammal Center in Sausalito, and the Noyos Center for Marine Science right here in Fort Bragg.
It's an IPA. You're gonna love it. You're gonna feel like a good person drinking it. Or you could just buy a few of these and be shunned by society. It's up to you. Okay, last but not least, sometimes I get sick of hearing the same news over and over again, and the headlines are really repetitive, so I get it. AB InBev had a truck self-drive itself to deliver some beer. It's the first of its kind ever. Yay, the end is more near than it was last week. That's all from me. I'm gonna go do some research on cyborg updates. I'll be back next week with another wrap-up of world beer news. Here is the news from last week. If you missed it, they're still good episodes to watch, because, you know, I'm on them. And some of my vlogs, if you want to know more about me. Be sure to connect with me on your media platform of choice. Just link me to anything that you do. Always interested in having people be involved. So if you want to submit some pieces to this, contact me at news@tastingnitch.com. And remember, beer is more than just liquid. It's a whole culture. Makes you sound smart. If you go into the pub and you're like, oh, I have all of these stories from this week. I know so many things. Where did you learn that? Oh, Tasting Nitch, World Beer News. Genius. That's how you get the ladies. Don't quote me on that.